The first time she saw him, she nearly forgot why she was there. The dimly lit restaurant buzzed with quiet laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of background music. At a corner table sat a man whose presence seemed to draw light toward him. Broad shoulders, a sharp jawline, and eyes that carried the weight of someone who had lived far beyond his years. He looked powerful, yes, but there was something softer, something broken, in the way he kept glancing at the empty chair across from him. Sophia reminded herself why she was there. She wasn't just another patron waiting for dinner. She had been paid, handsomely, to make sure his blind date went terribly wrong. The woman who had hired her wanted revenge on the wealthy single dad who had rejected her advances, and Sophia, desperate for rent money and drowning in medical bills for her younger brother, had agreed. The plan was simple: spill wine, be rude, act shallow, ruin the night so badly that he'd never want to see the real date again. She straightened her dress, rehearsed the fake smile she'd been practicing all day, and walked toward him. When their eyes met, something strange happened. His expression shifted from guarded caution to warmth. He stood up politely, pulling out the chair for her as if she were royalty. "You must be Sophia," he said in a deep, steady voice. Sophia faltered. She hadn't expected him to sound kind. She hadn't expected him to look at her like she mattered. "Yes," she managed, forcing herself to stay in character. "That's me." He smiled faintly, then sat back down. "I'm Adrian. Thank you for meeting me. I'll admit, I don't usually do this kind of thing." She had researched him enough to know he wasn't exaggerating. Adrian Cole, CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. A man who had everything except companionship, and maybe happiness. As the waiter poured them wine, Sophia reminded herself of the plan. All she had to do was ruin this. But the more Adrian spoke, the harder it became to follow through. He didn't brag about his money. He didn't act superior. Instead, he asked her questions, real questions. What did she enjoy? What dreams did she have? No one had ever looked at her with such genuine curiosity before. When she tried to fake rudeness, he chuckled and brushed it off, almost as though he sensed her struggle. When she faked arrogance, he only tilted his head and smiled gently, like he could see right through the mask. And then he said something that shattered her resolve completely. "I have a daughter," Adrian confessed, his voice softening. "She's 7. She's my whole world. But it's hard. People see the money, the company, the headlines. They don't see the man who makes peanut butter sandwiches at midnight or stays up sewing Halloween costumes because his little girl asked him to. Most women I meet, they don't want that side of me." Sophia's throat tightened. She had been paid to humiliate this man, but sitting there she didn't see a millionaire. She saw a father, a man who carried burdens with quiet strength. The guilt clawed at her. She thought about her brother, sick, frail, the reason she needed the money. She thought about the woman who had hired her, expecting a detailed report of her sabotage. And she thought about Adrian's eyes, filled with a vulnerability he rarely showed the world. The food arrived. She was supposed to cause a scene, complain about everything, ruin the night. But instead she found herself laughing at his stories. Real laughter, not the fake kind she had practiced. She forgot the script, forgot the deal, forgot everything except the way his smile made her feel seen. At one point he leaned forward and said, "You know, you're not like I expected. You're different, refreshing." Sophia froze. She wanted to tell him the truth. She wanted to confess everything, that she wasn't supposed to be there, that she had been sent to hurt him, but fear held her tongue. If she told him, she'd lose him forever. The night ended with a walk outside beneath the city lights. He offered her his coat when the air turned cold, and for a moment she let herself imagine a different life, one where she wasn't lying, one where she could hold his hand without shame. When they said goodnight, he looked at her as though he wanted to say more, but he only whispered, "I'd like to see you again, if you'd let me." Sophia went home torn in two. Her phone buzzed with messages from the woman who had hired her, demanding details. But Sophia couldn't bring herself to reply. Instead, she stared at the ceiling, her heart aching with the weight of her choice. The next morning, she made a decision. She went to Adrian's office, trembling with fear, knowing she might destroy any chance she had with him. When he looked up from his desk and saw her, confusion flickered across his face. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice breaking, and she told him everything, every shameful detail. Silence filled the room when she finished. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkened with betrayal. She expected him to throw her out, to call security, to never want to see her again. But instead, he asked one question. "Why?" Tears spilled down her cheeks as she explained about her brother, about the desperation, about the choice she never wanted to make. And as she spoke, Adrian's expression softened. He didn't excuse what she had done, but he understood. After a long pause, he stood, walked around his desk, and gently handed her a tissue. "You hurt me," he admitted, "but I also know you didn't have to tell me the truth. That says something about the kind of person you really are." For the first time in years, Sophia felt hope flicker inside her. It wasn't easy after that. Trust had to be rebuilt and the past couldn't be erased. But Adrian didn't walk away. He chose to see her, not the mistakes, but the courage it took to confess. And in time, what began as a cruel setup blossomed into something neither of them expected. A love forged not in perfection, but in forgiveness. Because sometimes, the people we're meant to find come into our lives in the most broken ways, and it is in those cracks that the light finds a way to shine through. And for Sophia and Adrian, that light became love.